The space station, called Nexus 7, was the biggest trading hub in the galaxy. Thousands of aliens from hundreds of worlds came here every day to make deals, sign agreements, and show off their power. The station was so large that it took 3 hours to walk from one end to the other. Ships of all sizes came and went like bees around a hive. On this particular morning, a small human ship docked at Bay 47. The ship was called Dawn Horizon, and it carried the first human trade delegation to ever visit the Galactic Council. Humans were new to space travel. They had only discovered faster-than-light engines 20 years ago. Most alien species had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. To them, humans were like children who had just learned to walk. Kang Do-hun stepped off the ship and looked around the massive docking bay. He was not a tall man. Back on Earth, he stood at 5 feet and 7 inches. Here, surrounded by aliens who were 8, 10, or even 12 feet tall, he felt very small indeed. But his face showed no worry. His eyes were calm and patient, like a man who had learned long ago that size did not matter as much as most people thought. Do-hun was a scientist who studied alien life forms. He had spent 15 years learning about creatures from other worlds. He wore a simple gray uniform, and across his chest he carried a special harness. Inside this harness sat his companion, a creature he called Bora. Bora looked like a cat. She was about the size of a large house cat, with soft fur that seemed to change color depending on the light. Sometimes her fur looked silver. Sometimes it looked deep blue. Her scales, which were hidden under the fur, caught the light and made her shimmer like a creature made of starlight. Right now, she was sleeping peacefully against Do-hun's chest, purring softly. Behind Do-hun came Commander Yoon Sora, the captain of the Dawn Horizon. She was a strong woman with sharp eyes and a quick mind. She had fought in 3 border conflicts and had earned her rank through courage and skill. Next to her walked Ambassador Han Ji-woo, a diplomat whose job was to make friends and sign treaties. Ji-woo was elegant and spoke 7 alien languages perfectly. "Stay close," Sora said quietly. "I do not trust this place." They walked through the docking bay toward the main hall, where the negotiations would take place. Aliens of all kinds stopped to stare at them. Some looked curious. Some looked amused. A few looked at the humans the way a person might look at insects crawling across the floor. The main negotiation hall was a grand chamber with ceilings so high that clouds actually formed near the top. Hundreds of alien delegations sat in their assigned areas, each one representing a different world or empire. The humans were given a small table near the back, far from the important species. Then the Gorath arrived. The Gorath Dominion was one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. They were giants, standing 12 feet tall with thick gray skin and muscles like mountains. They believed that strength was everything. The bigger you were, the more respect you deserved. The weaker you were, the less you mattered. High Prefect Morcon led the Gorath delegation. He was the tallest of them all, nearly 13 feet of pure power. His eyes were small and cruel, and when he smiled, it was never a friendly smile. He walked through the hall like he owned it, and other delegations moved quickly out of his way. Morcon stopped when he saw the humans. He stared at them for a long moment, then threw back his head and laughed. The sound echoed through the entire chamber. "What is this?" he boomed. "The humans send their hatchlings to negotiate? Look at them, they are so small. I have seen insects bigger than these creatures." His guards laughed along with him. Other delegations watched in silence, some looking embarrassed for the humans, others enjoying the show. Morcon walked closer to the human table, his heavy footsteps shaking the floor. He pointed one massive finger at Do-hun. "This one is the smallest of all. Tell me, little creature, do humans send their runts to do important work? Or are you all this tiny?" Do-hun looked up at the giant alien calmly. "We come in different sizes," he said. Like most species. Morkan laughed again. Then his eyes fell on Bora, still sleeping in Do-hoon's harness. And what is that? Some kind of vermin? A snack for later? He turned to his guards. Perhaps we should feed it to our war beasts. They enjoy small prey. Commander Sora stepped forward, her hand moving toward her weapon. You will show respect, she said, her voice cold and hard. We are here as equals. Morkan looked down at her like she was a child throwing a tantrum. Equals! You! The Goroth have ruled 1,000 worlds while your species was still living in caves. You are not our equals. You are nothing. Ambassador Jiwoo tried to calm the situation. High Prefect, perhaps we could discuss trade agreements in a more formal setting. There is no need for— Silence, Morkan said. He had already lost interest in the conversation. As he turned to walk away, one of his guards stepped forward and kicked Bora's harness with his heavy boot. The kick was not hard enough to hurt, but it was meant to insult. The guard grinned, expecting the small creature to cry out or run away. Bora opened one eye. Just one eye, golden and deep like looking into the heart of a dying star. She looked at the guard who had kicked her. She did not hiss. She did not move. She simply looked. And for just one moment, her scales flickered with a pattern that seemed impossible. Colors that did not exist in normal space danced across her body. Shapes that hurt to look at appeared and disappeared in less than a heartbeat. Across the hall, every single prey species froze. The small ones, the gentle ones, the ones who had evolved to run and hide from predators. They all felt something ancient and terrible crawl up their spines. They did not know what they had seen. But some part of their brains, the old part that remembered what it was like to be hunted, that part screamed at them to run. Bora closed her eye and went back to sleep. The guard stumbled backward, his face suddenly pale. He did not understand why his hearts were beating so fast. He did not understand why his hands were shaking. Do-hoon stroked Bora's fur gently and said nothing. His face was still calm, still patient. Some things were better left unexplained. For now. That night, strange rumors spread through Nexus 7 like fire through dry grass. In the lower levels of the station, where the small traders and workers lived, people whispered about what they had seen in the negotiation hall. A creature that was not a creature. A pet that was not a pet. Something old. Something wrong. A young worker from a prey species called the Minari told his friends that he had nearly fainted when he saw the small cat-like creature open its eye. I do not know what I saw, he said, his voice shaking. But my grandfather used to tell stories about monsters that lived between the stars, creatures that hunted empires. I always thought they were just stories. His friends laughed at him, but their laughter was nervous, and none of them slept well that night. In another part of the station, in the great archive where all galactic history was kept, an old alien sat alone surrounded by ancient books and glowing data screens. His name was Keeper Tolan, and he was one of the last members of a species dedicated to remembering everything. The Keepers had watched civilizations rise and fall for 1,000,000 years. They wrote down everything they saw and heard so that the future would never forget the past. Tolan was very old, even for a Keeper. His skin was thin like paper, and his eyes were cloudy with age. But when a young assistant showed him a picture of the creature carried by the human scientist, those cloudy eyes suddenly became very clear. Where did you get this? Tolan asked. His voice was barely a whisper. From the security cameras in the main hall, the assistant said. Everyone is talking about the humans and their strange pet. I thought you might find it interesting. Tolan's hands shook as he looked at the image. Interesting, he repeated. Yes. That is one word for it. He turned to his data screens and began searching through files that had not been opened in 10,000 years. Leave me, he said to his assistant. "Tell no one about this image. Do you understand? No one." The assistant left, confused and a little scared. Tolan searched through the ancient records for hours. Finally, he found what he was looking for. It was a document written so long ago that the language was almost impossible to read. But Tolan was a keeper. Reading dead languages was what his people did. The document told the story of the precursor empires. These were the great civilizations that had ruled the galaxy before any of the current species had evolved. They had built wonders that modern species could not even imagine. They had conquered death and time and space itself. They thought they were gods. And then one by one they disappeared. The document spoke of creatures called void stalkers. They lived in the spaces between dimensions, hunting in ways that normal life could not understand. They did not kill for food. They did not kill for territory. They killed because they chose to. And when they chose to kill, nothing in the universe could stop them. "They come for the arrogant ones," the ancient text said. "They come for those who think themselves greater than they are. They are the balance. They are the end." Tolan stared at the image of Bora for a long time. Then he began to laugh. It was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of someone who has just realized that the universe is much stranger and more dangerous than anyone knows. Ambassador Han Jiwoo could not sleep that night either. She lay in her small room on the dawn horizon, thinking about what had happened in the negotiation hall. Something was wrong. She had felt it the moment that creature opened its eye. Something ancient and terrible had looked out at the world and then hidden itself again. She got up and went to find Kang Do-hun. She found him in the ship's small garden, sitting on a bench with Bora curled up in his lap. The creature was purring softly, and Do-hun was stroking her fur with gentle hands. "We need to talk," Jiwoo said. Do-hun looked up at her. His eyes were tired but kind. "Yes," he said, "I suppose we do." "What is she?" Jiwoo asked. "What is Bora really?" Do-hun was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I found her 5 years ago on a dead world. The planet had been empty for millions of years. Every building was dust. Every machine was rust. But in the middle of all that death, I found her. She was sitting in the ruins of what might have been a temple, waiting. When I approached her, she looked at me. And then she chose me." "Chose you? What does that mean?" "Bora is a void stalker," Do-hun said simply. "The apex predator of the galaxy. Her kind has not been seen in 10,000 years. Everyone thought they were extinct. But they were not extinct. They were just waiting." Jiwoo sat down heavily on the bench. "And she chose you? A human? Why?" "I have thought about this for 5 years, Do-hun said. "I think void stalkers only bond with species they consider worthy. Species that have something special about them. Humanity is violent and cruel, yes, but we are also kind and curious and brave. We protect the weak. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves." Perhaps Bora saw something in us that she liked. Bora opened her eyes and looked at Jiwoo. This time her gaze was soft and warm, like a cat looking at a friendly stranger. She made a small sound, almost like she was saying hello. "Does anyone else know?" Jiwoo asked. "Commander Sora knows. A few scientists on Earth know. We decided to keep it secret. If the galaxy knew that humanity had bonded with a void stalker, it would change everything. Some species would worship us. Others would try to destroy us out of fear." "And the Gorath?" Jiwoo asked. "Morkan kicked her. He insulted her." Do-hun smiled sadly. "Bora does not care about insults. She is older than most civilizations. She has seen empires rise and fall. One foolish alien kicking her is nothing. She only acts when I ask her to, or when she decides the time is right." Suddenly, the ship shook. Alarms began to sound across the station. Jiwoo jumped to her feet. "What is happening?" Do-hun looked down at Bora. The creature had vanished from his lap. Oh, he said calmly. She went hunting. Hunting? Hunting what? Something in the void between stars, probably. She gets bored sometimes. She will be back soon. Across Nexus 7, every sensor screamed warnings. Something had torn a hole in reality itself. Something had passed through dimensions that should not exist, and then, just as quickly, everything returned to normal. Bora appeared back in Do-hoon's lap, licking her paw like nothing had happened. "Good girl," Do-hoon said, scratching behind her ears. Ji-woo stared at them both, her mouth open. She was beginning to understand why the ancient empires had feared the Void Stalkers. And she was beginning to understand why Bora had chosen humanity. The next morning, the grand negotiation chamber was filled with more aliens than ever before. Word had spread about the strange events of the previous night. Everyone wanted to see what would happen next. The human delegation took their seats at the same small table near the back of the hall. Kang Do-hoon sat calmly with Bora sleeping in her harness against his chest. Commander Yoon Sora stood behind him, her eyes watching everything. Ambassador Han Ji-woo had not slept at all, but she had put on her best diplomatic face. High Prefect Morkan entered the chamber like a storm. He was angry. Very angry. The strange events of the night had made him look weak in front of the other delegations. His guards had reported that the alarms came from the direction of the human ship. He did not know exactly what had happened, but he knew the humans were involved, and Morkan did not like things he did not understand. He marched straight to the human table and slammed his massive fist down on it. The table cracked under the force. "You!" he roared, pointing at Do-hoon. "What trick did you play last night? What did you do?" Do-hoon looked up at the furious giant with the same calm expression he always wore. "I did nothing," he said. "My companion went for a walk. She came back. That is all." "A walk?" Morkan laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Your vermin caused every sensor on this station to scream. You expect me to believe it was just taking a walk?" "I expect nothing from you," Do-hoon said quietly. "I simply tell you what happened." Morkan's face twisted with rage. No one spoke to him like that. No one. He turned to face the entire chamber and raised his voice so everyone could hear. "I invoke the ancient law," he declared. "Trial by combat proxy. Let the humans prove their worth in the old way. Let their champion creature face mine. If they win, they will have my respect and fair trade agreements. If they lose, they will pay tribute to the Gorath Dominion for 100 years and give up all claims to galactic trade rights." The chamber erupted in noise. Some aliens cheered, others gasped. Trial by combat proxy was an ancient tradition, rarely used anymore. It allowed disputes to be settled by having creatures fight on behalf of their owners. The law was old and strange, but it was still legal. Ambassador Ji-woo stood up quickly. "High Prefect, surely we can resolve this through peaceful negotiation." "There is no need for—" "The challenge has been made," Morkan interrupted. "According to galactic law, the humans must accept or be branded as cowards. Their species will never be taken seriously again." Commander Sora's hand went to her weapon. "This is absurd. You cannot force us into this." "I can." Morkan smiled cruelly. "And I have. The law is clear. Accept or be shamed. Those are your only choices." Ji-woo looked at Do-hoon desperately. If they refused, humanity's reputation would be destroyed before it even began. But if they accepted, what chance did Bora have against a Gorath war beast? She still did not fully understand what Bora was capable of. What if Do-hoon was wrong about her power? Do-hoon stood up slowly. He looked at Morkan, then at the watching aliens, then back at Morkan. "We accept," he said. Do-hoon. "No." Ji-woo grabbed his arm. "We cannot risk this. If Bora loses—" "She will not lose," Do-hoon said softly. He looked down at Bora, who had opened her eyes and was watching the scene with lazy interest. "She has never lost anything in her very, very long life." Morcon laughed with delight. "Finally, some courage from the small ones. Very well. The combat will take place in the arena in 1 hour. My Devastator will crush your pathetic pet, and all the galaxy will see that humans are nothing but weak little creatures who do not deserve a seat at the table." He turned and marched out of the chamber, his guards following behind him. Commander Sora looked at Do-hoon like he had lost his mind. "Are you insane? A Gorath Devastator is a killing machine bred for thousands of years to be the perfect predator. It has destroyed entire armies. And you are putting Bora against it?" Do-hoon smiled for the first time since arriving at Nexus 7. It was a small smile, but it changed his whole face. "Commander," he said, "the Gorath have bred their Devastators for thousands of years to be the best killers in the galaxy. But Bora has been hunting since before this galaxy had stars. She was old when the precursor empires were young. She has killed things that the Gorath cannot even imagine." He leaned down and whispered something in Korean to Bora. The creature stretched and yawned, showing teeth that seemed to extend beyond what should be possible. For just a moment, her teeth looked like they continued into another dimension, into a space where normal rules did not apply. Sora saw this and felt her blood go cold. "What did you say to her?" she asked. "I told her to try not to scare them too badly," Do-hoon said. "She can be dramatic when she wants to be." Word spread quickly through Nexus 7. Within the hour, every alien on the station who could fit into the combat arena was there. The arena was a massive enclosed space, designed to contain the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. Its walls were made of materials that could withstand nuclear explosions. Its shields could stop any weapon known to exist. The Gorath delegation sat in the best seats, laughing and celebrating their coming victory. Morcon sat on a throne of black metal, already imagining the tribute he would take from the humans. The other delegations watched with a mixture of curiosity and pity. Everyone knew the humans were about to be humiliated. Everyone felt sorry for the small creatures who had dared to challenge the mighty Gorath. Only Keeper Tolan, watching from a dark corner of the arena, felt differently. He alone knew what Bora really was. He alone understood what was about to happen. His old hands shook as he watched Do-hoon carry Bora into the arena. "Poor fools," the old keeper whispered. "They have no idea what they have awakened." Do-hoon placed Bora gently in the center of the arena floor. She sat down and began to clean her paw, completely unconcerned about the massive doors on the other side of the arena. Behind those doors, something very large and very angry was waiting. Morcon raised his hand. "Release the Devastator!" The doors opened, and every being in the arena felt something strange, a feeling they could not explain. A feeling that told them they were about to witness something that would change the galaxy forever. Bora looked up from cleaning her paw. She stretched, and for just a moment, her eyes glowed with the light of dying stars. The Gorath Devastator stepped out of its cage, and the crowd gasped. The creature was 15 feet tall at the shoulder. Its body was covered in armor-like scales that had been bred over thousands of generations to stop any weapon. Its claws were longer than swords and sharper than razors. Its mouth was filled with teeth that could bite through solid steel. When it roared, the sound was so loud that some of the smaller aliens in the audience covered their ears and cried out in pain. This was the Gorath's proudest creation, a living weapon. A monster designed for one purpose only, to kill anything that stood against the Dominion. The Devastator looked across the arena and saw Bora sitting in the middle of the floor. The tiny cat-like creature was still cleaning her paw, paying no attention to the nightmare that had just been released. High Prefect Morcon laughed from his throne. "Look at it!" The human's pet does not even know it is about to die. This will be over in seconds." The Gorath crowd cheered. The other aliens watched in silence, some turning away because they did not want to see a small creature torn apart. In the human section, Commander Yoon Sora stood with her fists clenched. Ambassador Han Jiwoo had closed her eyes. Only Kang Do-hoon watched calmly, a small smile on his face. The Devastator charged. The ground shook under its massive weight. Each step cracked the arena floor. The beast moved faster than something that big should be able to move. In 3 seconds, it crossed half the arena, its jaws opening wide to swallow Bora whole. And then Bora was not there. She did not jump. She did not run. She simply stopped being in one place and started being in another. One moment she was in front of the Devastator. The next moment she was behind it, sitting calmly and licking her paw again. The Devastator crashed into the empty space where Bora had been, confused and angry. It spun around, searching for its prey. The crowd fell silent. What they had just seen was impossible. Nothing could move that fast. Nothing could simply disappear and reappear. Morkan leaned forward on his throne, his smile fading. "What trick is this?" The Devastator charged again. And again. Bora simply was not there when its claws came down. She appeared on its back, walking along its spine like she was taking a pleasant stroll. The beast thrashed and roared, trying to throw her off, but she moved with it perfectly, never losing her balance. Then her scales began to glow. Patterns appeared on her body that made no sense. Colors that did not exist in normal space danced across her fur. Shapes that the mind could not understand flickered in and out of visibility. The glow grew brighter and brighter until many in the audience had to look away. And then everyone in the arena felt it. A pressure, a presence, something ancient and vast and terrible was looking at them. Something that saw them as nothing more than insects. Something that had been hunting before the stars were born. The Devastator stopped moving. For the first time in its life, it felt fear. Real fear. The kind of fear that goes deeper than instinct. The kind of fear that comes from knowing you are in the presence of something that could erase you from existence. Bora jumped off the Devastator's back and landed softly on the arena floor. She turned to face the giant beast, and when she did, the crowd saw something that would haunt their dreams forever. She opened her mouth. But it was not a cat's mouth anymore. It was a tear in reality itself. A hole that led somewhere else. Somewhere dark and endless. Teeth lined the edges of this hole, but they were not normal teeth. They extended into dimensions that should not exist. They were infinite. They were hungry. The Devastator tried to run. The greatest killing machine the Gorath had ever created, the monster that had destroyed armies and conquered worlds, tried to run away from a creature the size of a house cat. It did not make it. Bora's mouth expanded. The tear in reality grew larger and larger until it was big enough to swallow a mountain. The Devastator screamed as it was pulled into the void. The sound was terrible, a cry of pure terror from a creature that had never known fear before. And then it was gone. The Devastator simply ceased to exist. It was not killed. It was not destroyed. It was unmade, erased from the universe as if it had never been. Bora closed her mouth. Her scales stopped glowing. She shrunk back down to her normal, cute, cat-like size. She yawned, showing tiny, normal teeth, and then trotted back across the arena toward Do-hoon. The arena was completely silent. No one moved. No one breathed. 10,000 beings from 100 worlds stared at the small creature that had just eaten a monster. Bora reached Do-hoon and rubbed against his leg, purring loudly. She looked up at him with soft, innocent eyes, as if asking for a treat after a job well done. Do-hoon bent down and scratched behind her ears. "Good girl," he said quietly. His voice echoed in the silence. High Prefect Morkan sat frozen on his throne. His face had turned gray. His hands were shaking. He had just watched his greatest weapon get erased from existence by a creature that looked like a pet. He had just realized that he had challenged something beyond his understanding. Keeper Tolan stood in his dark corner, tears running down his old face. "A void stalker," he whispered. "After 10,000 years, they have returned, and they have chosen the humans." Slowly, one by one, the aliens in the audience began to stand. They were not cheering. They were not celebrating. They were showing respect, the kind of deep, primal respect that comes from witnessing something truly powerful. Dohun picked up Bora and held her against his chest. He looked up at Morcon, and for the first time, the small human did not seem small at all. "I believe," Dohun said calmly, "that we have won." Morcon said nothing. He could not speak. He could barely think. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. The days that followed the arena battle changed everything. News spread across the galaxy faster than light. Every world, every station, every ship heard the story. A small human had walked into the greatest trading hub in existence with a creature that looked like a pet. The mighty Gorath had laughed at him. They had challenged him, and then they had watched as their greatest weapon was erased from existence by something that should not exist. Species that had mocked humans suddenly wanted to be their friends. Ambassadors arrived at Nexus 7 every hour, carrying gifts and offers of trade agreements. Worlds that had ignored humanity now begged for meetings with Ambassador Han Jiwoo. Jiwoo worked day and night to manage the sudden flood of attention. She was tired, but she was also proud. Humanity had come to the galaxy as newcomers, as children learning to walk among giants. Now they were being treated as equals. More than equals. They were being treated with respect. The Gorath Dominion surrendered completely. They offered everything the humans had originally asked for, plus more. They promised never to insult or threaten humanity again. High Prefect Morkan himself came to the human delegation's quarters and bowed his massive head in apology. But Morkan's shame burned inside him like fire. He had been humiliated in front of the entire galaxy. His reputation was destroyed, his power was broken, and in his broken heart, hate began to grow. That night, Morkan called his most loyal guards to a secret meeting. "The human scientist must die," he said. "Without him, the creature will have no master. It will leave or go wild. Either way, our shame will be avenged." His guards looked at each other nervously. One of them, the same guard who had kicked Bora on the first day, stepped forward. His face was pale, and his voice shook when he spoke. "My lord," he said, "I cannot do this." Morkan's eyes blazed with anger. "You refuse? You dare refuse your High Prefect?" "My lord, I have read the old stories. I have learned what the Void Stalkers are. They do not just protect their chosen ones. They know when harm is planned against them. They feel it across space and time. If we try to hurt the human, the creature will know. It will come for us. And there is nothing in the universe that can stop it." The other guards nodded. They had all felt the terrible presence in the arena. They had all seen what Bora could do. None of them wanted to face that again. Morkan was left alone with his hatred and his shame. He had lost everything, and there was nothing he could do about it. On the last day before the human delegation was scheduled to leave, Keeper Tolan requested a meeting with Kang Dohun. They met in the station's garden, a quiet place filled with plants from 100 worlds. Tolan was old and tired, but his eyes were bright with curiosity. "I have studied the Void Stalkers my entire life," he said. "They are the greatest mystery of the galaxy. I have one question that I must ask if you will allow it." "Ask," Dohun said. "Why?" Tolan asked. "The Void Stalkers have existed since before time had meaning. They have watched countless species rise and fall. They have never bonded with any of them, not once in all of history. So why did this one choose humanity? Why did she choose you?" Dohun looked down at Bora, who was sleeping peacefully in his lap. He thought about the question for a long time before answering. "When I found Bora," he said, "I was alone on a dead world. Everything around me was dust and ruins. I should have been afraid. I should have run when I saw her. But instead, I sat down next to her and offered her some of my food." He smiled at the memory. "She looked at me for a very long time. I think she was trying to understand why a small, weak creature would offer food to something that could destroy him in an instant. And then she did something strange. She purred. She had never purred before in her entire existence. I was the first being to ever make her feel comfortable." Tolan leaned forward, fascinated. "But why humanity? What makes your species special?" "I think," Dohun said slowly, "that Bora saw something familiar in us. Humans are small and weak compared to many species. We do not have claws or armor or poison. But we survived anyway. We became the dominant species on our world not because we were the biggest or the strongest, but because we were clever and stubborn and refused to give up." He stroked Bora's fur gently. "Void stalkers are the same. They look small and harmless. Other creatures underestimate them. And then those creatures discover the truth, usually too late. Perhaps Bora saw kindred spirits in humanity. Apex predators hiding in plain sight." Tolan nodded slowly. "That is a good answer. Thank you." The next morning, the human delegation prepared to return to Earth. Commander Yun Sora supervised the loading of the ship, while Ambassador Jiwoo said goodbye to the many new friends she had made. Dohun stood on the observation deck of the dawn horizon, looking out at the stars. Bora was curled up in his arms, purring contentedly. The sound was warm and peaceful, like a small earthquake wrapped in happiness. Commander Sora joined him at the window. "Quite a trip," she said. "Yes," Dohun agreed. "Quite a trip. Do you think they will ever underestimate us again?" Dohun watched the stars for a moment before answering. "No," he said, "but that was never really the point." "Then what was?" He scratched Bora behind the ears. She made a sound of pure contentment, and for just a moment her scales shimmered with impossible colors. "Respect," he said. "We never wanted them to fear us. We just wanted them to stop looking down." Sora smiled. It was a rare expression on her usually serious face. "Well," she said, "I do not think anyone will be looking down on humanity for a very long time." The Dawn Horizon's engines hummed to life. The ship pulled away from Nexus 7 and turned toward home. In a flash of light, it jumped to faster-than-light speed and disappeared into the void between stars. Behind them, the galaxy continued to spin. Billions of beings went about their lives, but now they did so with a new understanding. Humanity was not just another small species struggling to find its place. Humanity was something special, something chosen, and somewhere in the void between dimensions, other void stalkers stirred. They felt Bora's happiness through the fabric of reality. They knew that she had found worthy companions at last. Perhaps, they thought, it was time to wake up. Perhaps it was time to see what these interesting humans were all about. The universe was about to get much more interesting.